Oh, Bill, do you have a joke?
I do not have a joke.
Gary, do you have a joke?
No, I'm afraid not. Only that Spock's third final front ear joke, which I don't think we need to do that one.
Alrighty. Welcome to the Final Frontier, the jokeless podcast, all about Star Trek fan films and fan creations. I am Bill Allen, a.k.a. the guy in the red shirt. Joining me is our co-host, Adam Mullen.
Hello.
And our special guest who's doing some very interesting things. We have Gary O'Brien.
Hello.
Well, let's get right into this. Our weekly roundup of news. There's been some big news on Discovery. Bill, have you heard?
Yes. They're booting a couple of the showrunners and doing a staff rearrangement again.
Yeah, so it looks like Alex Kurtzman is going to be elevated to the main showrunner.
That worries me a little bit.
Is it because of his work on the newest movies?
Yes, but not for the reason you think. I don't have a problem with the new movies. I like the new movies. Wasn't too keen on them doing Khan, but I still enjoyed the new movies.
Yeah.
What bugs me is, and even though it was an interesting way to go with it, and it was loosely, vaguely based on a handful of scenes from the original series, he did the whole Kirk Spock Spock Uhura thing to shake things up a bit, and he did base that on a couple of partial scenes that kind of sort of showed the two of them flirting back in TOS, and basically he did that because Kurtzman is a Trekker. And he's the kind of Trekker that says there's a difference between Trekker and Trekkie, and he says Trekker is the right term. So that tells you the kind of Star Trek fan he is. So he's going to get minutiae right, but he's going to do it wrong because right is his way of right and not, the actual right. So it's still going to be Star Trek, but I think he's going to be paying attention to the wrong details of Star Trek. But he's just show running. He's not like writing every episode and steering the entire storyline. So I'm not too concerned. It's just, those stinking Trekkers, man.
Yeah. Gary, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they seem to be having so much trouble. It's like early TNG all over again. I'm not super up to speed with all the ins and outs of it, I must say, but I know the first season had a difficult start, and it got massively delayed, didn't it, by like a year or something. Yeah. And now this as well. I mean, they're already shooting second season, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd have more confidence if this had happened when they were on a break, but the fact that they're actually in the full swing of it right now and this happens raises even more alarm bells. But, because, what I heard a lot during the first season was, don't worry, they had a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff they had to deal with, and the second season will be better. But now, I wonder if they're just going to have that excuse, as it were, again. We've had more troubles, so the third season will be better. So, we'll see. I'm optimistic. I want to like it. So far, I'm yet to be persuaded fully. I haven't welcomed it into the fold with all the other shows yet. But I'd like to, but I won't just do it because it's got Star Trek written on it. I'll wait and see how it pans out, I think.
All right. Well, shall we move on to the question of the week?
Yeah.
All right. So this is my trivia question.
Okay.
This one actually was submitted by Steve Atwell. And so his question is, which member of the Voyager crew was sponsored into the Academy by Captain Sulu? Was it Janeway, Tuvok, Torres, or Chakotay? So you don't need to answer now. We'll come back to it later, but just, be thinking about it.
Alrighty.
All right. So shall we get into the interview?
Yeah.
Okay. Bill, do you want to start us out, or do you want me?
Go for it.
All right, Gary. Question 1. How did you first get into Star Trek?
Okay. I think I just saw it on the TV, you know. I think I must have just caught it by chance. I have a vague recollection of my dad. I think the original series was on the TV, and I was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7. And I don't know which episode it was now, but my dad said, there's a really good one of these. And he basically described the Doomsday Machine. He didn't know that was the name of it, but he said, oh, there's a really good one, and sort of briefly explained it. And I think him having enthusiasm for it, I mean, he's not a big Star Trek fan. He just had seen a few of them, and he remembered that one. But the fact that he kind of endorsed it, and I kind of liked what I was seeing, I think it was just when you're a kid, you're so malleable, and I think that was pretty much all it took to at least get me to pay attention to it, and then I just grew into it more and more as I got older.
So then, what's your favorite series?
I guess, I mean, I do like all of them, but I think it's a little bit like James Bond, isn't it? I think like you bond with the one when you're at that right malleable age. So I guess it probably comes down to TNG. Just if for nothing else than for that reason, that that was the one I kind of really latched onto with full vigor at the exact right age when I was, I don't know, 10 to 14 or something. And I like all the others as well, as I say. But yeah, I guess gun to my head, it's TNG.
Which season is your favorite?
See, I haven't broken it down and actually figured that out, but intuitively, I'd say it's probably like around season 5 and 6. I guess that would be a rough guess.
Do you have a particular episode that you like the most?
Oh man, well, there's the big classic ones that are on the top of everybody's list. I'm sure. So I they're there for sure. But there's the ones where you think, well, in some ways this is just a good episode in that you could show it to somebody who's not interested in Star Trek, and it's got good story and character and all that. But then there's other times when you just you don't care what some other outsider would think. So something like Timescape, it's not gonna win any awards for character development or anything, but it's just really cool. And as a fan, you can say, well, I like this. I wouldn't recommend this one to somebody to just watch cold. It's not the best, but I don't know. It's cool seeing the next gen guys on a runabout. It's cool seeing the back of the runabout. It's a goofy thing, but it's great seeing everybody frozen and it's just cool. So that but any of them, all these episodes are good. I mean, even the bad ones. The thing is, I find when you rewatch them, you tend to not always rewatch the ones that you kind of mark out as not as good. But then eventually you do watch them and you're like, actually, I forgot you got to see, I don't know, that place in the ship we never see hardly ever. That's the episode that's from. And, and you think, actually, even the bad ones, the quote bad ones have value. So, yeah, they're all good, man.
Yeah, I found that more true with TNG than DS9. DS9 is the one I rewatch where occasionally I tend to skip episodes where I'm just like, this one, yeah.
Right.
But TNG, you go back and it's like, sometimes I don't remember this. And then you're halfway through it. Oh, yeah, now I remember why I don't remember it. But hey, it's still cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite film?
I guess I do. And it might be just, there's two that I really like, and I'll just say them. It's Undiscovered Country and Generations. And I know Generations is often a little bit... it's not often cited as a fan favorite, but I must admit, probably part of it is, again, I was just, I bonded with that film. It just came out right when I was at the right age. Yeah. And so I think there's a little bit of bias in there just because, it was the first one I properly saw at the cinema and all that kind of thing. So yeah, but also the Undiscovered Country. I mean, in many ways, that's not, particularly, it's not particularly Star Trek, is it? I mean, lots of people have commented how it's quite dark and it's more of an espionage movie and it's quite political and not the things you normally associate with, typical Star Trek, subject matter. But I just think Nick Meyer did I don't know, it just stands out. He did such a good job all round. That film feels really real. Whereas the other ones, I don't know, you take Search for Spock or something, it's always got that slightly sort of lit 80s soundstage.
Yeah.
It's like Superman or something. You know, it just doesn't quite have that same feeling. But The Undiscovered Country, I think, is just such a good film. I think that guy, certainly, I mean, I don't know how much he's involved with Discovery, Nick Mayer, now, really. But certainly in terms of his movies, the Star Trek ones, he really knows what he's doing. So, yeah, he's great. And so you can't help but like both his films. And Star Trek 4, of course, which we know he had a big hand in. So, so yeah, it's my rambling answer to that question for you.
What do you think about the 3 newest films?
I don't hate them, but I don't really. They're okay. I mean, I see them more as they're serving a function. I think in that they're. I guess I'd say that they're there to make money and hopefully keep the franchise relevant.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel that I don't think they slot in neatly with all the existing stuff. I don't go out of my way to watch them. I don't own any of those. I think I own everything else on some sort of physical format, but I don't own the Abrams movies. And it's not because I hate them. It's just that I've got no desire to go and buy them particularly, you know.
Of the 3, which do you like the best?
I would say probably the third one, Beyond.
Yeah.
And I think Into Darkness, I just think it just really missed the mark in lots of ways. Personally, I think, and the first one. I mean, in fairness, I haven't seen the first one for quite a while, so I might be misremembering it. But I just thought, well, I remember at the cinema thinking in the first 5 minutes, thinking, this is so cool. I was so amazed and blown away, and thinking, I didn't expect this could be this good. And then it just kind of lost me. If it had stayed how it was in those first 5 minutes up until the teaser ends, but then it just kind of went downhill for me. Not to the point where it's awful. I'm not so fussed by it. I mean, I'm kind of glad that they sort of insulated them within the canon from the Prime timeline.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did that. I don't know really what their thoughts on doing that were, what their motivations were, but certainly I'm glad that I don't have to try and accept that this is definitely occurring in the same timeline. And I think the fact that they did that allows me a little more grace. I think I'd be more hostile towards them if they were supposedly just, the Academy days we never saw, and that would bug me. But
yeah. I think it definitely gave them like a creative freedom to do what they wanted, but at the same time they didn't really do that, and they kind of went with what had already happened with Into Darkness with Khan, and that was kind of a letdown. It's like, really, you've created a new timeline, you can do anything you want, and you just kind of rehash what we've already seen, and it's not as good as the original. It can't be as good as the original. So for me, that's kind of a letdown, even though I still extremely enjoy those 3 films.
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually, just thinking about what I said a moment ago, I guess the only slight way they didn't insulate themselves was that we do know a bit about the Prime timeline, don't we, from the first one, in that Spock was messing around with that red matter and stuff.
Yeah.
Which, actually, now that I've remembered that, it is kind of annoying. I didn't like that. But it's almost like, I'm sure that can be, if we go back to the Prime timeline, I'm sure that can be, I don't know, written around somehow. I thought that what was it called? The jellyfish, wasn't it? That ship Spock was in. Yeah. I just thought that just looked. I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I've seen them, but I'm not a big fan of it really. It just doesn't gel with me. But I looked at it and I thought that just looks like a Star Wars ship. It just didn't look like anything from Star Trek at all.
Yeah.
And it made this weird little sort of stupid noise as it whizzed around, like the Jetsons or something. And I just thought, what? And why would Spock, he's like an aged, very well-regarded diplomat and ambassador, why would he be the one flying this like weird test vehicle thing around that sounds like the Jetsons? And I just, the fact that that's, I guess, am I remembering right? That's the Prime timeline as well, right?
Yep.
In theory. Yeah. See, I wish I hadn't thought about it this hard. I've kind of
Well, so to make you like really go crazy about it, in the comics, it's established that Geordi is the one that built the jellyfish.
Oh, jeez. Actually, I think I read that comic. A friend bought it for me.
Yeah,
what's it called? Is it Countdown?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Is that the one where Data's in
Yes.
captaining?
Yes, he's the captain of the Enterprise.
Yeah, I did see that. Geez, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that's the other thing. I hate it when, in any franchise, when they try and tie up every little thing you've ever heard of, they explain it. It's just, just invent a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of bugs me when they feel that they need to just stitch up every little thing you've ever heard mentioned, and so of course it's Geordie that made that thing. I mean. But actually, I mean, in fairness, there's a lot of people out there that do like those films, and as I started off by saying, I just want to be negative about them. They are kind of entertaining, and a lot of my friends who aren't Trekkies particularly, they go, "Well, they're great, they're really fun, I enjoyed it." And it's like, yeah, I guess that's what they're really there for, isn't it? So,
my personal headcanon for all of that with the little Stingray ship and the little squid ship, whatever it is, and. Well, why it was Spock is Spock misses Kirk, so sometimes he has to go and do a Kirk thing. And the reason the ship looks so weird and the reason the red matter seems to have been invented out of nowhere is it was all a conspiracy by time-traveling people from the temporal Cold War to kill Spock.
Okay, well, that makes as much sense as anything else, so yeah, why not?
Because, I mean, it starts with a time travel caper, and I was pretty convinced that eventually they're going to wrap up the JJ timeline with another time travel caper to try to put things right and reset the timeline. So it's going to end up being a temporal Cold War thing because they're going to try to tie it to Enterprise. And it was all a plot to kill Spock.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. I mean, I wonder if they'll do that, or whether it will just sort of wither on the vine and never actually finish. Like, it will just, they won't make another one at some point, and it'll be, oh, okay. Who knows? I'd like to think they have some grand little scheme, even if they don't have it in their head right now, that they'll get to one and sort of tie it a neat bow around it all. We'll see. It'd be cool if they did.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Well, somebody was saying that there's a weird kind of parallel between the new films and the old films, Mm-hmm. The first new film, they're fighting a massive fleet that's way more advanced than anything, and only the Enterprise is in a position to stop it, which is just like Enterprise versus V'ger.
Yeah.
And then the second film was Khan, which was just like Wrath of Khan. And then the third film has them on this rocky, barren, destroyed alien planet, which is just like what they were on the Genesis planet. Only instead of trying to bring Spock back to life, they're trying to bring their mojo as a crew back to life.
Right.
So he said the fourth one was about time travel. The Voyage Home was time travel. So the fourth JJ movie is going to be, I don't know if that is just a coincidence and somebody's reading too much into it, but you never know.
You never know. Yeah.
We'll have space whales.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Let's get into fan film stuff. So, Gary, do you have a favorite fan film? Besides your own?
I guess, I guess I'd just say Star Trek Continues, really. Mm-hmm. And to be more specific, I would say, was it called What Ships Are For? The one with John Delancey in? They went to the planet.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Black and white.
I can't remember quite.
I think I'm right, but
I'm
not,
looking it up
I
really quick here. Yeah, What Ships
Google.
Are For? Yep.
Yeah. I think that, from what I remember, I mean, I must admit, I've watched them as they came out, so the earlier ones I haven't seen for a while, but that one I really enjoyed. I thought it was just it worked on lots of levels, and I thought the device of the black and white thing was very clever and very apt. I could see them doing that in the 60s. It was very much of its time. I mean, I think they wouldn't have actually done that in the 60s because they were trying to sell color TVs.
Yeah.
But I think so. But that aside, I think that premise and that kind of device is very much a 60s kind of thing. And I loved it. I thought they did a really good job with that one. I mean, all of them are great, unparalleled, really, I think. But that one in particular, I think, probably stands out as a favorite. It was cool. And actually, I was a little bit annoyed, actually, when I first saw it, because I was getting ready to develop with my writing friend Paul what was to be our second Star Trek film, and we'd already done a fair bit of work on a script, and well, not a script, but a story outline anyway at that point. And then I watched that, and it wasn't the same story, but there was lots of very similar elements to it, and I was like, oh, geez, we can't do this now. I emailed him, I sent him the link. I said, dude, watch this. I don't think we can do it. And he came back and he's like, yeah, we've got two choices. Just plow on and say, let's do R1 and we'll just tell people we'd thought of it already, or just change it all. So we decided to change it all. And I can't remember what all the ins and outs of that were now. It's long forgotten. But at the time, it was a bit crushing. And they've done such a good job of it. It was like, damn you and your good story.
So, what made you want to get into fan films?
Well, nothing actually. I've always sort of made films, and my friend Paul and we've made a bunch over the years, and we hadn't done sci-fi or Star Trek or anything like that. We'd just done, well, there were all sorts of different things. We'd done a World War II one and sort of contemporary ones and sort of very light horror, existential crisis kind of things. Well, all sorts of different little, silly short films. And we were gearing up to do another one just because, we enjoyed doing it all every year or two. And we were struggling to come up with, we weren't struggling to come up with an idea, but we were just at the stage where we're trying to think, well, what should we do this next film of ours about? Could be anything. Mm-hmm. And I'd had this idea about, I just like the idea of pairing an old man with a young woman, but not having anything sinister. Mm-hmm. Because I think, even as I say that sentence just then, you say, I'm going to pair an old man with a young woman, and instantly it just sounds like there's going to be trouble of some kind, something horrible is going to happen somewhere of some type. But I just wanted to show that, no, that's like a cinematic device or storytelling device that we see probably all too often, and just wanted to flip it and show, no, you can actually have a nice old guy. And that was all the thought was, really. And then from that point, we started to develop ideas, and Paul really came up with a few. And then he put a kind of pseudo sci-fi twist into one of these ideas around that framework. And then I kind of, a little light went on in my head, and I thought, well, this could sort of work as a Star Trek film. Maybe, because I'm a big Star Trek fan, but I'd never really had the thought to make a Star Trek film. It just hadn't really occurred to me. So I said to Paul, dude, what do you think? Would you be up for making this a Star Trek thing? And I really didn't know if he'd want to do that or not, because he likes Star Trek, but he's not a big fan of it particularly. But he said, yeah, cool, let's do it. So I said, okay. And so it became a Star Trek film.
Wow.
But there was no real sort of, I've got this pressing desire to make a Star Trek fan film. It just kind of came about like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
Wow.
Well, I just want to say it was a fantastic film, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, thank you.
A lot of times, and this is not to be rude to fan films, because there's a lot of great fan films out there, but a lot of the fan films kind of want to tell you the story. You wanted to show us the people. There was a lot more like character to your films than what's normally on display.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you're right. Yeah. And some of that was born out of, firstly, I'd qualify it and I'd say that this second one, which I guess we could talk about in a little bit, but I think some people who might have seen Chance Encounter, I understand if people look at it and go, well, it's almost not Star Trek-y enough in terms of what you see on screen and so on. And I think that's probably, if someone were to make those comments, I would kind of agree. We kind of stumbled into making a Star Trek film, and we really put a Star Trek skin on an existing idea. And I hope we did that well. I think people generally seem to appreciate the film. But with this new one we're going to do, we really want to say, okay, this is Star Trek from the ground up. It's going to be a much more like, oh wow, this feels like a real episode. A far more quintessential Star Trek story, whereas Chance Encounter is broadly a love story in a Star Trek uniform kind of thing.
See, and that's. I mean, I was always more of a original series kind of guy over Next Generation, and that's the thing. It's like even though it was a TNG era film, you captured the heart of Star Trek. You know, it's like it might not have been a Star Trek story, but it was a story with a Star Trek heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you.
The spirit of the movie, the characters, the general story itself about a dude traveling back in time to make sure his relationship stays on the right. That's Star Trek through and through. I mean, if it was a modern day Star Trek movie, he'd be traveling back in time to murder his wife's current boyfriend so that young him can start dating wife. But you know, and he'd be a villain, quote unquote. But I mean. No, I mean, that's the kind of thing that you'd see in some of the better character-driven, character-focused stories in original series and Next Generation.
Yeah, no, thank you. And there's a kind of weird kind of irony in it in a way because, as you just said, in that sense, it's very much like quintessentially Star Trek, and people have been very gracious generally in the comments on YouTube under it and saying, well, this really captured the feel of Star Trek, which is great. You know, that's exactly what I hope to do. But at the same time, people, you know, when I was making it, people would say, oh, you're making a Star Trek film. You got a load of phases in it, have you? Nope. Got warp drive? Nope. Oh, a load of aliens? Nope. You know, you got transporters? Nope. You know, it's kind of like we were missing like all the, you know, all that you'd think are the sort of ingredients you needed. They're like all absent. And yet, you know, you can make the comment that you just made and say that it was bang on Star Trek. So it's kind of weird. I think it says that, you know, we got the aesthetics and the tone of it just right, I hope, even though we didn't, you know, put all the obvious kind of things in it that you would sort of assume would have to be in a Star Trek film. And also, I mean, part of it was thinking about, you know, you look at the classic, you know, we didn't even mention them earlier when you asked about favorite episodes because, you know, we know the list so well, like The Inner Light, The Visitor, City on the Edge of Forever. But they're all really simple stories. I mean, they don't have a lot, you know, of effects and big high stakes stuff. The galaxy's not in danger and there's no war starting. It's just, you know, a guy in a situation generally. It's all quite quiet and quite simple. And so for me as a filmmaker with, you know, no budget, of course I'm going to like gravitate towards that kind of idea rather than, okay, how do I depict fleets of starships and intergalactic diplomatic tensions and stuff? It's like, well, you're not really going to be able to pull that off as well as you can pull off one man's personal story with a woman, you know. And so, you know, I think that was informing the choice as well, that, you know, we wanted to emulate the episodes that everyone says are their favorites, and it's like, oh, phew, that's a relief. They're the easiest ones to copy on a no budget, you know. So I think there was an element of that in there as well.
Do we want to move on to questions about your next film?
Yeah, I was going to kind of lead with that one because I did have something I wanted to ask. Holy Core. Well, Chance Encounter. You had those two Starfleet officers in a shuttle pod who were chasing down our time-traveling mad scientist.
Yeah.
And even though they were sort of, I don't want to say secondary characters to make them sound less, it was the old man's story. But those two characters had kind of a unique personality, a nice kind of rapport going on there. Is Holy Core a continuation of their story, or is it completely unrelated, like no characters get reused?
The latter is going to be completely fresh. No, none of the same actors, although we loved them all. They all did a great job, and we're still, you know, there was no fallouts or anything, but we just wanted a clean break and a whole new set of characters. Plus, also, I think there's that, I don't know if that would disqualify us or not, the fan film guidelines about continuing stories. I don't know if that would have potentially been an issue for it as well. But, you know, we conceived those characters for that one film. You know, they fit in perfectly into that story. But that's, you know, we didn't sit down and try and come up with some characters that you could get 7 seasons out of, you know. We just wrote them just to slot into Chance Encounter, and that, hopefully they do that well. But part of the fun of it is creating, new characters and new situations and stuff. So we don't have any plans to continue with the same crew or cast or anything like that.
Can I talk you into making plans to do that?
If fire a budget over and I'll knock you stuff.
Okay. I'm just saying, it's like, even though it was, just sort of, they were there to kind of give the guys somebody to exposition with or whatever. They were very well fleshed out, supporting characters that could have carried, maybe not 7 seasons, but they could have carried an Enterprise series on their own.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, they were originally, it's like, we need something to cut to, that's the harsh reality of it. But of course, we're trying to make our scripts. We take care over them, we hope, and try and do a good job. And, we said, look, we don't want these to just be people looking at sensor readings and apprehending him. It's like, how can we mirror the story, the broader themes within these characters? And even though you're right, they are secondary characters. But, we don't just want to be filling up screen time with secondary characters. It's like, just maximum, just throw everything you've got at every character and make it hopefully feel as rich and like they're real people as well. And if you get the impression that, wow, I'd like to see them again, they were interesting, well, then that's great, because that's what we hope to do, even with the quote secondary characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, since it's not about those guys, and that makes me very sad, what can you tell us about Holy Cross?
Holy Core, I could tell you.
Holy Core, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
First you tell me the right title, because I can't read.
So the Holy Core. Okay, so do you want to know kind of like the story kind of themes rather than where we are in reality with the production?
Yeah, well, we want to know both, but let's start with like the general story. What can you tell us without giving too much away from the...
Sure, okay. Let's see how to do it without giving it away, because, I want to be careful, of course. Well, it's going to be a half-hour film, for one thing. We're going to sort of maximise what the fan film guidelines allow, because they hadn't come out. Well, I think they came out while we were fundraising for the Chance Encounter, so we kind of just dodged them. So it's half an hour. But in terms of the story and stuff, it really kind of... I mean, hopefully there's not just like one story. It's more like a set of themes, I suppose. And so those themes would be religion and science, which are obviously a sort of classic pairing. We've heard them mentioned in the same sentence often, I think. And normally it's with a verses in the middle. But we're not trying to do that. We're not sort of having a religion versus science debate. We just want to show how some aliens have a different take on science. And that we figured it was, for us, for humans or whatever, we kind of tend to see religion and science on a sort of spectrum, and they're at opposite ends. Whereas we thought it'd be interesting to see some aliens who that concept is alien to them. We sort of make an assumption that they have to be separate things. But I was like, well, why do they have to be? And it would be so there's these aliens that don't really see it as something where they're in conflict with one another. So we've got a kind of element of that going on, but that's not all there is to it. There's also, there's much more adventure in this one. It's a bit more, Chance Encounter, for all its merits, it was a little bit low key and it was very dialogue heavy. And we've got some great scenes of dialogue in this film. But we also want to unleash a little bit more of the fun stuff, and have a little bit of drama and adventure going on. So we've got, that going on in there, and we've kept an undercurrent of romantic love, as well, between two characters who are sort of separate in the film. They're separated from one another in the film, but they are in love. And I don't know, it's more like a list of themes. There's a list of concepts and themes that you can sort of say, these things are all covered by this film. But to get into the actual story, I think it would be it would be a shame, and it'd be like somebody telling you, explaining a film once they've come back from the cinema and watched one. It'd be like, oh, geez, this guy's just butchering this idea, I'm sure. So I would try and give you a plot synopsis. Plus, I'll be trying to dodge spoilers. So yeah, I'll just hang those themes out there. Yeah. So yeah, broadly, it's religion and science, but there's love, romantic love in there as well, and a lot more adventure and drama.
So where are you at in production for it?
Okay, cool. So we've the script is locked. That was locked a little while ago now. So that's all good to go. We're currently casting. We've got 6 cast members, and I think we've got 3 or is it 4 cast right now. I think one's all but confirmed. So we're cracking on with that. I'm hoping, if all goes well, I might even have 2 more cast by the end of the weekend or early next week. So yeah, we've made good stead in casting, and if that happens, then we've only have 1 more to find. So we've made good progress on that. I've been a lot of. I don't know if you guys have ever ventured into the filmmaking yourself, but if you have, then you'll know that a lot of it is just, especially at the early stages of it, it's like really unsexy, boring paperwork. It's like it's like the least interesting thing. It's just spreadsheets, emails, calendars, diaries, and this long list of, have I phoned that person? Have I confirmed that? Is this free on that date? Blah, blah, blah. It's like...
There's ducks, there's rows, you're trying to get everything lined up.
Exactly. And you can't really pin that down until you know that, but you can't really pin that down until you know the first thing, and so it goes around. But it slowly coalesces and picks up momentum, and so I think the worst of that stuff is over. We've got some shoot dates sort of nailed up now that we're going to move heaven and hell to make sure we stick to, because I don't want to keep changing these dates around, changing them. So yeah, we've got the shoot dates set, and so now I have to make sure that the sets are built and ready in time for that, and that the crew's available, and that the costumes are available, and the props that we'll need. So yeah, it's still sort of in that sort of bitty kind of almost dull logistics organising end of it, but the light's at the end of the tunnel on that phase. And and I've been sort of doing all these jobs at the same time as each other, so hopping between, sanding down some prop and then hopping on the diary and then hopping here down on putting out a job description for an acting role. And so yeah, I've been very busy. It's like crazy hectic.
Yeah.
And in fact, I kind of realized, I spoke with Paul about it, and I realized that he was right. I was sort of rushing it too much. We were going to be looking to shoot way sooner than was wise, really. And I thought, you know what, we don't really have a hard, fast, release date that we have to stick to under some contract, So I said, need to go so fast. So I slowed it right down. So we're going to be shooting, we're 10 shoot days in total, and the last one is slated for end of October. So we're going to slow down and make sure we've got just a nice breather, and that we're not just rushing it and it's all pulling it up just to get the thing done. So yeah, that's kind of an overview, I guess, of where the production is at the moment. But it's coming along.
So hopefully maybe a 2019 release sometime?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, when I ran the Kickstarter, I kind of said February/March 2019, and I think we can still stick to that. It's just we'll be shooting it in smaller chunks and editing it as we go, rather than sort of shoot it all up the front and then spending longer editing it. So yeah, hopefully February, March next year.
Wow.
Yeah, we should be done. So
it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, no, it will. Definitely. Time flies. Whether you're having fun or not, I've noticed. Yeah.
So while you were fundraising for this film, you didn't meet the goal, right? But then you had a generous donor swoop in and provide the rest of the funding. So before that generous donor came in, were you trying to decide what to cut, what needed to be cut, what was going to happen instead?
Kind of. I wasn't really, to be honest, because we'd written the story, and sure, we continued to refine the fine details of the script, but we knew what the story was and what sets we needed, and kind of, I mean, we try to write them from the ground up as producible. We don't ever really say, well, let's just write whatever we feel and then we can simplify it back, because it's just crushing, so and kind of pointless. It's like, well, you're just wasting your own time deliberately knowing you can't do this. So we wrote it lean. We wrote it to reuse our shuttle pod set. We still had that. It needed a little bit of work to get it camera ready, but it was basically, we had that already. And so we wrote it to be as lean as possible. And so if we hadn't got the funding that we needed, which was the correct amount of funding, we kind of sat down and came up with, I think we need this much, more would be nice, but we can do it for this, any less, and a struggle. And so really I don't know what I would have done had we not got the funding, but I don't honestly think there's not enough fat on it to just simplify it more. It would have just been like not a good film if we stripped the fat out, because it was already lean, So I didn't really have a plan at that point. You just sort of think, well, it's only two more weeks. Let's just keep going with the fundraising, and and hope that it gets a final blast at the end or something. Which I guess in a way it did, of a sort. But yeah, I would had we not got funded, I would have just, I don't know, sat around and sulked for a month or two probably, and then kind of just, I don't know what we'd have done. Probably just made another film that only cost like $1,000 and just paid for it ourselves. But yeah,
well,
there wasn't.
Fortunately, a generous donor came in and gave the rest of the money, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Do you have any plans for a third film?
No, not really. No, I don't think I've got the headspace for that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we'll make this one, and I'm sure we'll do a good job on it. I feel really happy about it. I think for the stage we're at, it's going very smoothly. I think the cast members we've already got are great. I'm really happy with. I think they'll do really well. And yeah, so I think this one's taking up all my sort of mental energy. And yeah, there's no plans to do anything really after this one. I'm sure we will. I think I said the same after Chance Encounter, but inevitably after a little gap, the itch will come back and we'll want to do another one. But for now, just all attention on this one.
Yeah, that's completely understandable.
Mm.
Bill, do you have any questions?
I think that one more. Holy Core, since you're going to be touching on issues of religion and science and you're not taking sides, are you prepared for the inevitable backlash as people on both sides get mad at you for not beating up the other guy?
I hadn't thought about it really, to be honest. Not really. I don't think, to be honest, I think it's not really framed in that way. I think it's probably more of a qualifier that I put in, because you're describing a film you're going to make and you say it's got religion and science in it. We're so used to that dichotomy that we kind of think we know what it is, but I think the way the film will present it, it won't really position it as something that you should take a side on. Mm-hmm. It's just different people having different views, and the film itself doesn't really make a judgment. There's an episode of Voyager I think it's called Sacred Ground. It's a sort of earlier one, third season maybe. Where Kes gets looking around some caves. It's always caves, and she gets pulled into some religious temple thing, and Janeway has to go through all these rituals to like unlock her, and it's a kind of understated episode. I'd forgotten about it until it just happened to come up on a rewatch. And I'm not saying it's a particularly great episode, but it's interesting in that it has a similar kind of. It's in a similar area of the ballpark that we're hoping to do, in that yeah, at the end she Janeway, obviously being who she is, she goes into it very she's sort of poo-pooing this whole idea of a ritual, and she's very scientifically based, and then of course she kind of gets all her preconceptions turned on her head, and she almost does have a spiritual experience. But then, of course, right at the very end, the Doctor kind of is able to explain it all with science and some crazy particles, and she's kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and it's a kind of, it's like I say, it's not a particularly like standout episode or anything, but it's just in a similar sort of area to this film. But we've got other ingredients in our film as well. It's not solely restricted to concepts.
Well, with the title Holy Core, Holy's right there in the title, so I figured that might be.
Yes. Yeah, no, a good assumption to have made. Yeah.
Well, Bill, do you want to move on to your lightning round?
Yes, I do. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Riker's beard or Spock's beard?
Riker's beard.
All right. Don't laugh. That's a valid lightning round question.
Sorry.
All right. In Chance Encounter, a guy goes back in time to make sure his love life goes on the right track. If you could go back in time and prevent a Star Trek character from having a romantic encounter, which couple would you break up?
Probably. Oh, geez, who were the Paris and Torres? They never suited each other, I didn't think.
Holy Core touches on religion of all the godlike aliens. Which one do you think would be the most decent to be the one to worship and rule over your planet as a god?
Well, let's just say Val. It wasn't
really?
Val, right?
Yeah, the snake computer was Val.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go for Apollo? One. You're not a toga guy?
No, well, I like the alien ones.
Yeah, okay.
I guess he was an alien. Who knows? It starts to blur together, doesn't it?
If you were to do a over-the-top Michael Bay special effects spectacular Star Trek fan film, what would you blow up and how would you blow it up?
Well, the universe, I guess, or at least the galaxy. And I would have 6 galaxies crash into R1. Some gravity pulls other galaxies in at an accelerated speed, of course, and boom.
And only one ship can stop it all, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Sounds about right.
Yeah, okay. And last question, just for fun of it, even though this is a Star Trek podcast, you have done a couple of other films. Which one of your other films would you like to give a quick plug to tell people to check out?
Why don't they check out A Far Cry? Which I believe then became a computer game, but we had that first. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, that's how old it is.
And that was your World War II film?
That's right, yeah.
Look at me, I did my homework.
Yeah, nice one, man.
Yeah, I couldn't say Holy Core correctly, but hey, I got that one right. All right, that was the lightning round.
All right.
Nice one.
Then it's time to revisit the question of the week.
Oh, yeah.
The question was, which member of the Voyager crew was sponsored into the Academy by Captain Sulu? Was it Janeway, Tuvok, Torres, or Chakotay?
Well, I can only assume it was Tuvok.
Bill, what do you think?
I'm going to say the same thing, because none of the rest of them were alive back then.
Assuming we're not talking some other Sulu, like Demora Sulu and blah, blah, but yeah.
Well, according to Memory Alpha, it's Chakotay.
Ah, man.
Sponsored Chakotay into the Academy. How about this bonus question? Who served under Sulu?
Well, that was Tuvok.
That was Tuvok, yeah.
Yeah, yep, and that is Tuvok. So there you go. Question of the week.
See, that's more perhaps unnecessary tying everything together. Did Chakotay really need to be with Sulu?
Yeah, that's...
At least it was off screen, I'm sure, or whatever. Yeah. Just an offhand mention. It wasn't a big plot point.
Did they at least say it was Admiral Sulu when Chakotay was sponsored? Because I'm going to be kind of ticked if Sulu stayed a captain for 40 years.
I don't think it necessarily specifies, but they probably said captain.
Right, yeah, perhaps they
that's
did.
Just horrifying. He was a captain for 60 or 70 years. That's just, you know what that is? Star Trek is racist against Asians. Sulu never got promoted past captain. Harry Kim never got promoted past ensign.
That's true. Yeah. I'll tell you what is it with Chakotay? Why is it that he's also best friends with Boothby?
Oh, yeah.
Are we just, again, I mean, Star Trek's not too bad at it in the shows because it's such a broad thing with so many characters, but really, I think they just wanted to bring that actor back, and they said, let's just make he's Picard's mentor and he's Chakotay's mentor, and I don't know, it kind of lessens.
Really
Honestly,
old.
he's everybody's mentor.
Yeah, I guess he was.
He's the groundskeeper, which means he's got like 6 degrees in philosophy.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much the official mentor of every student at the academy, and they all have their own Boothby stories.
That's right. And he's a boxing coach as well.
And that's all the time we have today, boys and girls. This has been The Final Frontier, a Treksphere podcast. Special thanks to our host, director of 2 Star Trek fan films, Gary O'Brien. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Check out Chance Encounter, currently on YouTube. Holy Core, coming soon. Chance Encounter anywhere else? Any kind of iTunes, Google, whatever?
No, it's just YouTube. You can find it through StarTrekShortFilm.com.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
We'll try to throw a link into Chance Encounter at the bottom of this video.
Perfect.
Like and follow us on Facebook. Check us out in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, and YouTube. Anywhere else? Are we anywhere else?
Nah, that's it.
Okay. Well, we're everywhere. We're always there because we're in your hearts, folks, and we know you take us with you wherever you go.